And welcome to another episode of Baked Good. Today on our show, we'll be making Tequila Sunrise Cupcakes. They have the great flavors of tequila, orange, and cherry. All right, let's get baking. All right, so the first step is to make the cupcakes. Got my handy dandy mixer here. As with most good cupcake recipes, it starts with the butter. So we're going to put 6 tablespoons of softened butter. I soften it sometimes in the microwave. My microwave is perfect at 15 seconds. I don't know if you ever want to test out yours to see how it is, because it's a little chilly today, so it didn't get too soft, just staying out at room temperature. So that's 6 tablespoons, and to that we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And we want to cream that together till it's fluffy. So we're talking at least a minute, and if you were doing a big batch, sometimes 2 minutes, but you get to know it by sight. Sorry it's a little noisy, but that paddle is a really nice paddle, but it just doesn't fit a bit. That's why it makes that kind of noise. All right, we want to make sure that it gets nice and fluffy. Now, I haven't had a Tequila Sunrise in an awful long time, but when I saw this recipe, I knew that it was a keeper. Tequila and orange juice, there's just something about it. It goes together good. All right, that looks pretty good. To this, we're going to add sour cream. I don't know how many of you out there bake, but there's something about sour cream. It just gives it a nice tender texture. So this, again, is 6 tablespoons of sour cream. Anytime I see a recipe like a pound cake or something with sour cream, or an apple cake, I'm thrilled, because it really does give it a nice texture. So let's give that a little whirl. Make sure it's nice and incorporated. Now we're going to put only 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla, because vanilla isn't the most prevalent flavor in this, but I think we have talked about before the Mexican vanilla. There's just something about it. You have to try it if you haven't. I do like the bourbon vanilla too, but there's something about the Mexican vanilla that just tastes really well. I went on a trip recently to Oklahoma and brought back a pint of it. It's so good. All right, so we're just going to put 1/4 teaspoon. It just gives it that little something, but we're not really looking for it to taste like vanilla, not this time around. And we're going to put 1/2 teaspoon of orange zest. I don't know if anybody's ever bought orange zest like this, but it's the best thing in the world. I have orange, lemon, lime, and even tangerine you can pick up. It's just so handy, and then you don't feel like you're wasting a whole orange if that's all you need. So I'm going to put 1/2 tablespoon. So that's about 1.5 teaspoons. And since this is its prevalent flavor beside the tequila, you want to make sure you do it all. All right, that's looking good. And to that, we are going to add 3 egg whites. I was thrilled because I made ice cream yesterday and I had 6 egg whites left over. So then I knew this was the recipe for me. So we're going to add them a little bit at a time, just like if we were adding eggs, because we want to make sure that it mixes in very well. It's hard to tell with egg whites because it just looks like anything else in there. All right, so that looks really good. That's nice and mixed. We're going to take some flour. I have here 1.25 cups of flour. To that, I am going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And then we need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So I know that this is about 1/3. Add a little extra. And I'm going to give that a little whisk. I forgot to get out my handy whisk, but I have a ton of things there. I just like to whisk it to aerate it a little bit. Make sure there's no lumps. It doesn't have to be terribly mixed in, the baking powder and the salt. But when things called to be sifted too, I actually just whisk it a little, and I've never had bad luck with that. All right, so we're going to mix this in, but first we're going to mix. I have here 1/4 cup of orange juice. Now you could use fresh squeezed, that would be so optimal, but I just had some in the refrigerator, so I'm using that. And to this 1/4 of a cup of orange juice, I am adding 2 tablespoons of tequila. Now, I went for the gold tequila. I just prefer it. It seems to have a little bit more of a taste, and it really doesn't matter what brand it is or anything like that, especially you're cooking with it. But a good 2 tablespoons of tequila. We'll put that right in with the orange juice. And we're also going to add 2 tablespoons of milk to that. Now I hope, let's see if my bowl is just going to hold it. Let me give that a little stir. Thought I had everything out. At least I have a whole drawer of gadgets here. Just a little stir, because it's going to get mixed in there anyways. And sometimes the tequila will make the milk look curdled. That's okay. It is what it is, just like buttermilk. All right, so we're going to alternate putting in the flour with our tequila mixture. So generally, I always start with the flour and end with the wet. That's just kind of been my rule. I can first see that this could use a little scraping. We want to make sure everything gets down there. We don't want to miss any of that goodness. All right. So I'm going to put maybe about 1/3 of our flour. I'll go this way just so you can see. A little bit of the tequila and the juice. Try not to make a big mess. I'm one for always making a mess. A little more flour. Oh boy, does that smell good. A little more tequila. 1 tequila, 2 tequila, 3 tequila floor. That's how they say it. The rest of the flour. And the rest of the tequila. All right, and that's our batter. I'm going to just turn that up and give it just an extra little whirl. Get a little air in there. It looks right, it smells right. Let's just give it a little scrape. Looks like everything got in there. I don't see any chunks. That looks as it should. I think we'll take this off. You don't want to waste any. All right, so I got my pan ready. I originally was going to make minis, but I'm going to go with a standard size muffin pan. Not too big, so I do have 3 or 4 different sizes. This is not too big. And at the end, these are going to be, you know, orangey reddish, so I picked a red baking cup. So I usually use for cupcakes, I use an ice cream scoop. I think it's just about a 1/4 measure. If not, it's really close. And that way all of your cupcakes come out the same size. It seems like a easy, neat little trick, so it works very well. I've done it many times. So I do scrape it along the side because I want them to be the same. I don't want it overflowing because then I'll get different sizes. After a while too, you learn to eyeball it, you can tell. These smell really wonderful. I think we're going to get maybe 1.5 dozen. If not, maybe about 16. It varies. I find these scoops tremendously helpful in making cookies, all kinds of cupcakes and batters. All right, so we're going to put these in the oven at 350 degrees. I am going to say about 20 minutes and then we'll check them. So we'll be right back to show you some frosting. All right, so you can see them a little bit in the frame. They came out really good. We got about 14 cupcakes out of that. If you made minis, you could get a little more, or you could make them whatever size you want, but they're all even size. They get just a tad of brown on them. That's how I like them. I don't like them to get dark underneath because I don't know what it is. I feel like it isn't just a good texture. So we're going to make the frosting. Now with the frosting, we have 3/4 of a cup of butter, which is a stick and a half, and I again put this in the microwave just to make it room temperature. Let's get every bit because that's the good stuff. And we also need a 1/2 cup of shortening. Now, I don't know if we've talked about the shortening before. I think we might have. I use the Spectrum Organic shortening. It's all vegetable. It's non-hydrogenated. That's the big thing with me. Because for a while, I wouldn't use shortening at all, like Crisco and all that, because it's hydrogenated oils, and I try not to. This is palm oil. And I've used it for pie crusts. I've used it for cakes. I've used it for frostings. The texture's right, and it makes everything come out right, and like your pie crust, it makes it still come out crispy and flaky without using the other stuff. So I just thought I'd show you that. Most times it's in the natural section, but I find in a lot of the stores now it's right next to the Crisco. So we're going to do a 1/2 cup, perfectly safe to eat. Actually, probably better for you. I got 2 things going on here. I don't know why. All right, so let's give these a whirl. Get them good and mixed before we add some sugar in there. You don't want any lumps, more than anything. Nobody wants to feel a lump of shortening or a lump of butter. Even though it sounds good to be a lump of butter, it's really not. You want it nice and smooth. That's the whole idea behind room temperature. Now this will be a little messy. To this we're going to add 5 cups of confectioner's sugar. This seems like a lot, but we want a lot of frosting to decorate. We want to make it look really good. And this is a different recipe. We're going to have the frosting, and half of it's going to taste like tequila and orange juice, and the other half's going to taste like grenadine, so it does really taste like a Tequila Sunrise. So we're going to add this a little bit at a time. It's still probably going to make a mess and look like a big sugar cloud, but there's not much you can do. I used to put like a towel over the mixer and stuff, but there's just no easy way. Just got to get in there and make a good old mess. It might seem stiff because 5 cups of sugar is a lot, but we'll be adding the other things. Let's see, is that on the lowest setting? We'll do low. Alright. There we go. Get all those last good bits. All right, and we're going to add a tablespoon of tequila to this. I don't think I locked it first. That's why we're getting that thumping. All right, because we want the whole frosting to taste like tequila. Going to scrape it down. Make sure everything gets in the tequila. So you can see it's a little bit chunky. But to 1/2, like I said, we're going to add the orange juice and the other half the grenadine. So it'll get fluffy after we add the liquid. Just make sure there's no hunks not. Get it mixed in. All right. Oop. Let's lock it first. We never learn from our mistakes. I'll just give it a good whirl. I'll make sure there's no lumps. It's kind of fluffy even before the rest of the stuff. All right, so I'm going to take half of this out. Oh, you know what I forgot? The orange zest. Even with the grenadine, we want a little orange zest. So we're going to put just a teaspoon of orange zest, because we do want both sides to taste like that. All right, that looks pretty good. So I think we'll reuse this bowl. Let's scrape it down and see about what half would be. Smells pretty good. I guess tequila and orange really just do good together. right. I know there's a little on the beater, but I'll do my best to get about half of this. Throw it in here. Let's see. I want to have enough for both ones. That looks pretty good. Now, the recipe calls for 5 teaspoons of grenadine for half of this. Seems a little liquidy to me, but I have not made this before, so I'm going to drizzle it in. And if it looks like it's getting too thin, I might not put the whole thing, because this is half the recipe. That seems like a lot of liquid, but let's see. It'll certainly make it a beautiful color. No, I guess it's taking it rather well. Let's mix it real nice so it looks pretty pink. That's what we're going for. All right, again, we got to give it a scrape down, because if you don't, you get those pockets of color or white. But it does look just about where we want it to be. Now the fun part comes in the decorating, when you see how nice it looks with the 2 different colors. Just going to give it one more whirl. It's okay to beat it a little extra, gets it a little air into it, make it a little fluffy. That looks really good. To this other half, we're going to put 2 tablespoons of orange juice in. Again, I was a little dubious. I thought that was a lot of liquid, but that looks perfect. It looks perfectly spreadable, so I can only hope I can get this as fluffy by hand. Might have to whip out the other mixer. Of course, I have 2 mixers because I do a lot of baking and cooking. It comes in handy at the holidays. And wow, does that smell nice? It's a good way to develop muscles. Now see, with my hands though, it's a little more lumpier than I would like. It's coming along though. All right, so that looks pretty good, but you know what? I think as we're doing this, I'm going to add a little bit of orange food coloring in there. It said it was optional, but I have to say, where that looks that pretty pink, I think it'd be nice to have a little orange in there. So let's see, how about if we try a drop of red and 2 drops of yellow, I think would do it. I know the red will be dark, so be very careful to get the 1. Let's just see where that brings us. That's probably a little more yellow than I want, but maybe it'll give us a nice bright color. Oh, actually, yeah, that's perfect. Gonna be bringing these to a nice end of the summer party, so that's about just what we're looking for. You get to be a chemist doing all this stuff. All right, so I'm going to get out some decorating bags and show you a few things we're going to decorate this with. So we'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I looked up this trick on this little thing we call the intranet, and we hope it's going to work, so that we could swirl these 2 colors. So I'm going to start by filling the frostings into these bags. And we might have been over this trick once before. I put the bag in a glass. That way you don't have to hold it, and it'll be nice and open to take the frosting. So let's put the pink one in there first. And my daughter always accuses me of overfilling them, but I don't want to fill them more than once. I don't know if it's a lazy thing or it's just too messy, and So I work on them this way. All right, so then we pull this up and we're going to squeeze it down as far as it can go. It won't squeeze that much until we cut that tip. In fact, let's do that because it won't go down. Let's cut it about a 1/2 inch. All right, and we're going to squeeze the frosting down, working more from the top because we don't want it to come out. Let's get it down to there. All right, there's the red one, or pink. I guess that's more pink. So we're going to do this again. I don't know where I learned this trick, but if you bake as much as I do, it's been a lifesaver. I used to make my husband stand there and hold it for me. Now this frosting is a little softer. I hope it'll be okay. After we decorate them, we're going to put them in the fridge anyway, so it'll get nice and stiff with all that good butter and shortening in there. All right. Doesn't seem to be as much as that, but I think we're going to get the desired effect anyway, and if we don't, they'll taste good. All right, so we'll do the same thing. Let's cut that off about a 1/2 inch right at the bend. We'll push that down from the top too. Okay, so here's the trick of it. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't been to Down East Cider, they make that in Charleston under the Tobin Bridge. So it said to put them in a larger bag. And in lieu of a larger bag, we're going to use a Ziploc bag because a lot of people use a Ziploc bag for this anyways, instead of buying them. I buy these by the tons, these disposable ones, because I use them a lot, but a lot of people don't. So I'm going to snip off the corner. And I have these extra large tips, so I snipped off a good, that's probably gives us about a 1/2 inch opening. So what we're first going to do is put this coupler through. And this is the tip. We're going to use a star tip. That's your basic cupcake decorating tip. Put that on there and let's screw the whole thing together and hope it stays on. Because you want them to look nice, of course. I mean, I always kid, if they don't look good, at least they taste good, but you do want them to look good. All right, so here goes the trick of it. So we're going to take the orange and take the pink and put them both into there. Let's pull the bag up. Make sure they're both in there. Keep that a little bit tight. You know what? I want to put an elastic around it, but I'm afraid it'll all pull out. But I think I will just to help hold it a bit. Let me see if I can get the tops of them too so it doesn't leak out while I'm squeezing. Now these are all things like I'm showing you, but you know, it's the first time I've done it. You want to make sure it's going straight into your tip. So if I squeeze, my bet's on messy, but good. It's probably all going to be in the way I squeeze. I'm a little afraid there's more pink in there than orange, but let's see what we get. So our cupcakes have been cooling. I found these handy dandy little cupcake pedestals that are really kind of useless but awful cute. So they're cute to display them. Let's see if we can get a color twirl out of here. Give it a squeeze. Oh yeah, we're getting both colors. I'm going to give it a good amount of frosting. Most people like the frosting more than the cupcake. And we want it to look good. No, I would say that's not bad. Can you see the subtle difference? I guess the orange isn't that bright, but you can definitely see the orange mixed in with the pink. I think that's rather clever. Let's try another one. We'll push all this down. Push a little of the orange up. It's a little hard because you're squeezing 2 bags at once, but I really like the effect of it, I have to say. Imagine the color differences you could do. You could do school colors or anything. All right, now to finish these off, like I said, these are going to a party, so we want them to look extra nice. We want people to know what's in there, and I'm going to make a little card so they know they're for adults only. So let's see. Let's slice an orange in half. And maybe half again, and let's right under the pith, because we don't really want the pith. And I think I'm going to make them very skinny. We won't do that one first. Just a little hunk of orange. Because, you know, fresh fruit really does look nice. It makes it. All right, that should do. And unfortunately, the store I went to was out of stemmed cherries, but I have a feeling this is going to look just as well. So I always use my skewer because, you know, if you never get the cherry dye off your hands. And I do want it to be right side up because I just think that looks better. I drained a little bit of the juice, but I'll tap it to make sure. So we want to put that right in the middle. Oh, there's nothing like the smell of cherries too. Okay, and then I think we'll take our little bit of orange and just come in and put it behind. All right, and there you have it, Tequila Sunrise Cupcakes. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Bake Good.